Boom. We should be live on the WAN show. I'm going to yet again pull it up on my phone because of the should that I just... Did you get them?
No.
Okay. You guys are going to witness some fly hunting throughout the show because there's one that just will not leave us alone, and I believe Lewis is going to murder it before we're done. But to introduce people here, Lewis Rossmann, fighter of Apple, repairer of everything. What's your channel and stuff? What various callouts?
Rossmann Group with 2 S's and 2 N's.
That's a good way to do that. Level 1 techs, Wendell.
How's it going?
Linux master man.
Don't hit me now.
Where'd it go? This will be a recurring theme.
It's a big one too. It's a big fly.
Oh, it's been feeding for a while.
It would be an honor to be assaulted by Lewis Rossmann.
Then he'll fix you
hit the
afterwards.
fly.
Yeah, he'll repair it afterwards. I am also down to be a target. Just go for gold. Yep.
Don't go down.
Let's go! I'm down! Right on the face!
I love how you're like, I'll take it, and then it goes, okay, here we go.
Right here, yeah. Okay, yeah. Channel, level 1 text, any other call-outs you want to do?
How's it going?
Yeah, there we go. Wendell. Jay's 2 cents. You guys probably know Jay.
Jay's 2 cents everywhere.
Yeah.
With a Z.
It's not Jay-Z on Twitter.
No. But if you're going to tag me, tag Beyonce too.
Yeah, might as well include it. And this WAN show will probably not be super standard. We have some news topics. I don't know what almost any of them are. We know that there's some updates to the MacBook Pro. Chrome is using more RAM. Wow, that's surprising. And some other stuff. But I doubt we'll get to a ton of it because we'll probably go into crazy tangents and we might kill a fly. I'm going to roll the intro and we'll be back in a second. LTX, I don't know why it's an ad for it, because it's tomorrow. So if you're watching this, you're probably either going or not. Private internet access, VPN, and Savage Jerky are the sponsors for this show. I'm going to try to reset this and then go back to main. So, new MacBook Pros coming out. They have replaced the keyboard, but as we were talking before the show...
It's not going to fail anymore?
Wrong.
You're not typing wrong?
It is a 3rd generation butterfly keyboard. However, this design was not intended to solve the recently highlighted butterfly keyboard issues.
That's a direct quote from Apple, isn't it?
I believe so. It's not in quotes here, but I believe so.
Well, I mean, there was no problem with it to begin with, right? You're just typing too hard.
So what was the actual... I generally stay away from those, but what was the actual problem?
Well, people would say that the key is either not working or it'll type 20 times when you press it once. And usually people would show up and say, I didn't get any water on it. It just happened that I'd open it and it would be yellow and brown and ugly. But some of these look like they're just new out of the box and the keys just don't work on them. Weird. And then it started to be something where once a day somebody would show up, then 5 people a day would show up. Then when we had 20 to 40 people showing up a day with the same problem and calling and emailing about it, I realized this is going to be a thing.
Yeah.
That's the super shallow, flat, real thin key.
Yeah, it's the thin key that goes
Yeah.
Like every time you type it, that really obnoxious, annoying one. It's not like a nice mechanical keyboard noise. It's a mechanical keyboard noise without any of the mechanic part.
Yeah.
There's no bass to it. It's just...
Yeah, they just have like this.
I was not a fan of that keyboard at all. Like, I couldn't type on it.
Yeah.
The throw's just so short. But basically what I'm hearing here is we got a new keyboard, but it could potentially have all the same problems as the other one.
Well, yeah, they specifically didn't even roll this keyboard out to fix the problem, so I assume there will be
because it was never a problem.
Right, I gotta put the Apple hat back on.
Do you have a sense that if it's more than like a year old, it's exponentially more likely to fail unnaturally, or is it age related at all?
I don't know. I think it's even age related because some people showing up with this have had it for 6 or 8 months, and they'll show up and ask if we can fix it because they don't want to wait a week or two for the Apple Store to do it.
Weird. Not good.
Well, just like iPhone 4, just don't hold it that way.
Yeah. It's just this really weird level of utopianism where I think, like, if it honestly reminds me of what my history teacher used to talk about with Russia and the Soviet Union, where somebody would be called a counter-revolutionary because they did something wrong, and that guy would get thrown in prison, and then the guy that was throwing him in prison would wind up getting thrown in prison by somebody else. But like somebody will say, my machine is getting really hot, and I get lines on the screen, and they'll say, why didn't you get AppleCare? If you had AppleCare, then it would have been covered. And then the guy that says that winds up one day out of AppleCare with a machine where like it'll just start randomly crashing. And he's like, oh my God, maybe that other person was right. But then he'll post in the forum and they'll go, why didn't you get, well, they released the replacement program for it. Why didn't you get it? And one of the funny things was the 2010 MacBook where it had a crashing problem because they used the wrong capacitor. They released the replacement program in 2013 that only covered the machine 3 years from the date of purchase. And the machine was manufactured in 2010.
In 2010.
So like if you were sitting there going F5, 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 F5 on their warranty page, maybe you would be able to get it. But if you believe that Apple products are this great, because in some ways they are, they're easy to use. They use PCI Express SSDs in like 2013. They had really great screens. They don't crash as often if you're comparing it to older Windows. And something goes wrong, you really don't want to believe that the product is bad.
Yeah.
So you either have to admit that they have faults, or you have to deny your own experience. And what drives me nuts is when people will actually believe I'm typing on it wrong, I'm holding it wrong, I'm encoding video on it wrong. And that's what drives me nuts. It's not that the product itself is terrible. It's that when something goes wrong with it, people will just treat themselves as if they did something wrong rather than if the company did something wrong.
Because they truly believe the product is fail-proof.
Yeah, it's like, it's not like other companies don't have faults too. It's just if somebody buys an HP and that happens, they will yell at HP. They won't. But if something happens with an Apple product and it's the same fault, they'll just believe that they did something wrong, and it drives me up a wall.
Yeah, and it's a frustrating experience too, because like I've generally liked Apple's ecosystem because I will send certain people there. Like for instance, my mom, I tried to get her to get an iPhone, then she got used to Android, so there's no point in trying to flip that over again. But I tried to get her to get an iPhone because, like you said, they're quite easy to use. They're usually fairly intuitive, all that kind of stuff. But then when you start having these problems, it's like, oh, okay, you're spending with this new MacBook up to like $7,000 if you want to get the crazy max tier. They get pretty expensive.
What?
You can get 6 cores, 32 gigs of RAM, like 4 terabyte SSD, so you can get the specs ridiculously high, which is, I guess, part of the factor, because anytime you tier up anything in Apple's customizer, it's really expensive.
And there's things that they do well. Like if David Bowie was coming back to life for 20 minutes and I had one chance to record You've Been Around Again, I would want to do it on a Mac, not Windows 10.
Right.
It's just I don't want to deal with all these other problems.
Windows 10 might try to, use
update in the middle of some nonsense like that.
Man, okay, so for LTX, which is tomorrow, we have 2 guests here from the forum, 2 guys that I've never met before, which I think is actually really cool that they're coming. I haven't seen them yet, but 2 admins on the forum, and one of them came over here with his business laptop, and he had a Windows update hit him while he was here, and it bricked his Windows. I don't remember the exact details, but he had to rush here in the morning and borrow a computer and a flash drive so that he could get Windows onto a flash drive so he could completely reformat everything so he could keep working.
Microsoft genuinely earned the reputation that they have, and they earned the people that will put up with this nonsense from Apple just to escape it. I completely understand it.
Well, I've had 2 systems completely fail on update to the point to where the system was completely unsavable.
And I remember getting Windows Vista with a new machine where when it first came out, you couldn't even run programs without running an update. You would just try to open a new browser, and it would just sit there, and then 20 minutes later it would open.
Yeah.
There's
really bad. My computer was one of the, admittedly, I guess probably over the overall spectrum of the amount of people that had this happen to them, not that high percentage, but my computer was one of the ones that when they forced the upgrade to Windows 10, I wasn't even at home. I had denied the upgrade so many times. Then I was at work, and while I was at work, my computer upgraded from Windows 7 to Windows 10 and bricked itself.
That was when they implemented the click here now before this countdown's gone if you don't want it.
Yeah.
Because they knew people were leaving their systems on, walking away, going to work, whatever. You'd come back suddenly in mid-update.
And I had even ran the scripts that are supposed to stop it, but then they'd release some update that would get around that, and it was very frustrating. One thing I've enjoyed this entire conversation is that Wendell has been almost silent.
I take it this way: if Wendell hasn't said anything yet, we're not wrong.
Well, no, I agree with that. But it's just the Linux man. It's just like
Linux. There are systems that I have that have uptimes of like 600 days, which is actually really bad because there are kernel updates and security updates and stuff like that. So those machines are potentially a typhoid Mary. But 600 days of uptime. Woo.
Yeah,
I like running Windows in a virtual machine because then it's It's like, oh, look, Windows Update bricked
Segregated.
itself. I can just hit a button, and it's like, oh, look, it's the way that it was yesterday. Nice try, Microsoft. You failed.
One of the things we're actually working on back in my studio right now is he landed on my hand right now, so we're gonna get him.
Okay.
But,
Good. He's back.
we're actually gonna do some rollbacks and force updates. We're gonna do comparative benchmarks to see how much it actually impacts your system, both high end and low end. Because there's times we're doing benchmarks and we're like, what the heck?
Oh, that's
Suddenly
cool.
something's weird. Like we start going, really super stuttery or something. We realize like, oh, look, a background process updates happening. And it's eating 25% of our resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anatech ran into that with their Zen Plus coverage.
Yeah.
The Rise of the Tomb Raider and a whole bunch of games were running as good or slightly better on AMD than Intel, and it was because they had the high precision timer, which reading and writing from hardware registers triggers the meltdown specter mitigations more, I guess.
Yeah.
So depending on what you're doing, you could have a significant reduction in performance.
Right.
It's an interesting situation. Do you want to talk a little bit about, not too much because we got a video to release, but do you want to talk a little bit about what you were doing here with Anthony
It
earlier
was
in the week?
exciting.
Yeah.
I spent Monday and Tuesday with Anthony doing Linux stuff, and it's Linux on gaming on Linux. And so we look at native Linux on gaming, which is pretty cool. It basically works. And then gaming through wrappers like Wine and all the various flavors of that, running 12 different versions of Wine at the same time easily. And then finally virtualization and the horizon for doing everything through a virtual machine and not really sacrificing anything in terms of performance. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be really good. We'll have companion guides and stuff on the forum for like really nitty-gritty step-by-step if you want to do Fedora or Ubuntu or Arch or whatever.
And everything he just said is why we were talking earlier about how Apple is sometimes more easily accessible. Running 12 different versions of Wine. Yeah.
Oh, so you're writing a game for Mac? Well, you're going to have to do the Metal API. Sorry.
It's gotten a lot better now, like compared
Yeah.
to, let's say, 15 years ago. If you wanted to do a digital audio workstation, Linux was terrible for it. But it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah,
I
it's still got some rough edges.
I extremely rarely do the hip things and go to clubs and stuff, but the only time I ever will is for one of my friends and on his birthday. And we went to one place, and I noticed that the DJ had a giant MSI laptop with an full RGB keyboard and stuff. And I was even thinking, like, that's just, like, weird. Like, I took a photo because I was like, oh, it's cool. He has
Usually
a gaming
it's a
laptop.
MacBook.
But it's usually a MacBook, and even just, it was one of the, like, thick ones. Because it had I believe it was one of the mechanical keyboard ones.
So like the
it's just
Titans?
huge. Yeah, it's a massive, cumbersome laptop that he brings to shows. Like,
I firmly believe that we want laptops as thin as paper. I don't think that a lot of consumers really want that. I think consumers like thin and light, but I think if you tell a consumer, hey, you can get 5 more years out of this machine if it's got a replaceable keyboard and it's just a hair thicker, that doesn't seem unreasonable.
You've talked about this a bunch with phones. Not to admit that I watch a huge amount of your content and have since way before I made videos, but you're talking about how you see a lot of reviewers review a phone, and it's different than consumers looking at a phone.
Yeah, 'cause-
thickness, plastic backs, all that kind of stuff.
there's this big disconnect when I read a review and then when I talk to people who come in and say what they want on a phone, just while, let's say we're fixing somebody's phone, we can have a 15-minute conversation. I've never heard a normal person that I've met in real life talk about the bezel of a phone. Every single reviewer, they'll spend 2 or 3 paragraphs talking about the bezel and, how it goes out to the end and how we have no casing at all. I've never heard somebody talk about that or care. In real life, they think, it would be nice if I dropped my phone from here to here that it not break. They don't care about the bezel. Or they'll say the back is made of premium materials, but the regular person will say, I can see fingerprints, that's ugly.
Yeah.
Or they're going to stick it in a case anyway.
Yeah, and it has to, like a phone like this has to go in a case because it'll crack if I go from here to here.
Yeah.
And the back of it looks nice, but if I actually touch it, you can feel
The only
fingerprints.
thing
getting on
I
it.
care
It's
about
gross.
with bezel is whether or not it's slippery without a case.
Yeah, and the
Phones
thing
are getting more slick over time, and that's always bugged me. But other than that, that's why you don't really see phone reviews on my channel, because I'm one of those people that just don't care about any of that.
Yeah, and if
I
you sold a
legit
phone,
don't.
imagine if I think that if you put it in a bullet point, 2 years from now, it will still work. The battery can be replaced, and it's not going to slow down too terribly. That somebody may actually consider buying it over something else. You have an extra 1/8 of a millimeter, but you can replace the battery.
I have an LG G5 for just that reason. It's ancient by today's standards, but removable battery and metal back, and still has a fingerprint sensor,
Yeah.
and it's not like super heavy.
And I see a lot of people say, yeah, but in 2 years you're going to get a new phone anyway. It's like, okay, you may get a new phone anyway in 2 years, but somebody that doesn't want to spend an extra $200 or $400 isn't.
Yeah, I think G5
I used to be
is
I'm sorry, I used to be an annual upgrader, but not anymore. Like I'll go 2 years plus, and usually the only thing that will make me upgrade is if I start seeing battery degradation.
Yeah.
And that's only because I've been on iPhone for the longest time now. It's because it's super simple, and that's only because it's not easy to service battery swaps, for an average end user.
I think that design kind of peaked around probably the Galaxy S3 because removable battery, upgradable storage, and it still had a plastic back.
Yeah.
And there were cases for it that you could replace the back, like you could take the back off and have like a leather back if you wanted.
Well, and when I was still working in IT, we had an entire fleet of S3s out there, and you could do the extended battery with the extended back cover. We were sending those out into the field.
Yeah, I don't know why that went out of vogue.
Yeah, a lot of people said, well, the battery life on modern phones is good enough that you don't need a second battery to get through the day, but that totally ignores the
They're
fact
not
that
me.
it's not even that's not even the issue so much as it is 1 year or 2 years later when it barely has any battery life. I'm going to keep this thing for longer than 2 years.
Swap the battery
see
out.
No reason to buy it, and I think more people would buy it if you actually advertise that. And I haven't seen anybody advertise longevity as a feature.
No,
but it could be.
One thing in Twitch chat, I posted a poll because I'm interested on the exact percentages, at least for our audience, which is a terrible section if we want to be scientific, but whatever. I want to see the exact percentages of people that care about ultra thin bezels. So check straw poll in the chat. And S3 specifically, I have one interesting story with that ties into what you were talking about with it should be able to fall, right? I was at university and I was late for class, so I was sprinting and I ran down a huge set of steps and I had too much momentum and there was one of those like poles that stop cars from going into areas.
Yeah.
So I decided I'll just hop over it. And I jump, and I remember that as I'm midair, remember that my phone is in my sweater pocket, not in my jeans pocket. It goes flying, smacks into the ground. The battery goes one way, the bat goes the other way, the rest of the phone goes the other way. Tiny chip in the corner, put everything back together, turn it back on, works perfectly.
What phone was that?
S3.
Galaxy
Yeah,
S3.
that was a hard phone to break.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that actually helps is that it kind of explodes. And it I can't remember the correct terminology for it, but the force of the impact goes with each part and lets it blow out.
Wasn't the S3 one of the earlier Gorilla Glass phones?
Yeah.
When that actually meant something.
Yeah. Before they kept making the Gorilla Glass thinner, which then just made it as brittle as anything else.
Yeah. Well, with the G5, where it's got the replaceable battery and still kind of modern, I've replaced the battery in it
78%
twice.
is no.
Yeah. I mean, it was basically a launch day phone, and you just slide it out and slide a new battery in. It's $8 from China.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can get those batteries so cheap if you buy them third party. So the poll results for people that didn't click on results when they ended is about 78% of people do not care about ultra thin bezels, and 22% of people do.
That's the
nearly
audience of people
1,000%
watching
or
a tech
1,000 people
tech
too.
review channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's skewed, but I don't necessarily know in what direction. It's it's such a high percentage that
We've seen it though. We've seen these early polls. You let them go for 5 minutes or 5 days. It tends to whatever like the first few minutes ratio.
it
you
won't
see,
change
it
a
just
ton.
Goes.
Yeah,
And now
it'll
there's
generally
1,000
stay
people.
there. Yeah. So the thing is, if you expose that poll to a much different audience, it might shift it a bit more, but I kind of doubt it. I have had a similar experience. I'm sure you've talked to more people about it, but I've had a similar experience talking to just friends and family.
Yeah,
like what would you want in a phone?
I remember reading so many phone reviews for this, and I saw one Eli the Computer Guy clip of a video, with his $500 camera pointing at it, saying, "This is me loading Google Maps. This is it not lagging." And I just thought, sold.
Yeah,
Because that's all I really care about. Like the things that I do every day. When I go to hail an Uber, is it going to take forever? When I want to scroll around, is it going to take forever? Does the battery last? Things basic stuff.
With phones these days that can play relatively decent graphic fidelity games at relatively decent frame rates, they can probably open Uber and Google Maps relatively easily.
I just feel like we've progressed so far in the mobile computing technologies and how fast things are. Like the early days of smartphones, back when I had my BlackBerry Storm and the Droid 1 was out and the iPhone 3 and 3G or 3GS, it's like back then it was a big deal. Like this one scrolls smoother, where the Android was choppy and stuff, where obviously there was big variance between the devices, but now everything's so damn close.
Yeah.
It's really hard to differentiate a winner. It really comes down to the interface. I think the interface battle is the thing that keeps Android, iPhone, and then I think I'm surprised BlackBerry's even still around. But
You're the only other person I've met that had a Storm. I had
a Storm because.
How did you feel about the first generation Storm?
It was terrible.
Okay.
It was terrible. I never used the because I think I had a physical keyboard too, if I remember correctly.
That one, no, there was no physical. That was the one that clicked.
That's right. It had the fake,
click
like
screen.
the whole screen went down.
Yeah, but it only had one button in the middle.
Right.
So as you got further out to the edge, you had to
It
go.
got weaker, a little bit more of a tilt. I got it because I was on Verizon and we didn't have any other options at the time.
Yeah.
iPhone obviously didn't come to Verizon until the 4S was out, and then
It lagged so badly.
right, and
It
then
took 7 minutes.
So
to
as soon as the Droid 1, the original Droid came out, I replaced the BlackBerry with that, and then I carried both iPhone and Samsung at work for quite a while. So I've got a very unique perspective of, at least back in 2013, what it was like to be a dual wielder.
Yeah, I never had any experience on the other side of the road back then, but I remember when like the first Android Butter update came out.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest deal I had seen in a while because it massively
I think
improved the
eClair was like
usability.
one of the first ones I was on.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You know what phone was massively underrated? Was the last generation T-Mobile Sidekick.
I heard a lot of people really liked it.
Yeah, it ran Java, which is like, you would think it would be a pile of garbage because Java. Especially in those days, because that was before Android. But the thing with a phone is that if it does what you want it to do really well, that it's a really good phone. It doesn't need to be a status symbol.
Mm-hmm.
The Sidekick was kind of like, it looked like a toy, but it had a good keyboard and the screen was decent. But it also had a color LCD that was reflective. So you're not going to get like photorealistic color, but you could get color. And so the battery life would last forever, like days, because it wasn't actually having a backlight unless it was dark outside.
You mentioned status symbol too. Here's a straw poll that might be interesting. How many people choose a phone based on it being an accessory or a status thing?
Yeah.
Right? Because I think a lot of people choose their phone based on what people are going to think of my phone. I think it's kind of sad, but I feel like there's a good percentage of people that care about that.
How many people are going to admit to that though?
Probably very few.
It's not really much of a problem anymore, but there was a while there where like the pricey phones couldn't connect to like corporate email and stuff like that properly,
Right.
and so I was on the receiving end of that, and it's like, you need to get this phone or this phone if you want it to work properly with your email system, and they're like, I'm going to buy this because it looks like I'm wealthy, and it's just like,
That was one of the reasons why I had the BlackBerry to begin with, because when I was working in software at the time in our IT department, we had all of our own mail servers and stuff. It wasn't through standard POP or any of that stuff, so it was the phone that could connect to it. But I'll be the first to admit that one of the reasons why I got iPhone back when it first came to Verizon was simply because it was something I couldn't get before, and suddenly I could, and everyone had it, and I wanted it because of that. And I literally have just stayed with it ever since because I got used to it, and I'm comfortable. I'm not really a mobile power user, and I don't need anything crazy.
By the iPhone 4, it was not completely unusable, but the iPhone 1 that didn't have copy paste, I just can't imagine that world.
Yeah, see, I joined long after that, obviously, but.
Speaking of not being able to imagine that world, we'll start from over here and go across. What was your favorite phone? Like at that point in time, I guess.
At that point in time, I think the HTC Incredible in 2010, because the other Android phones were slow and clunky. I was coming from a BlackBerry storm, so 6-minute boot time, opening browser takes a minute. Every time you do something, it stutters. And I got that phone, and when I would tap something, it just opened immediately. There was no lag. I'm sure if I upgraded to a new version of Android with it, or a newer, I shouldn't say new, it would be slow.
Yeah.
And it also actually fit in your hand comfortably.
Right.
Very few phones will fit in my hand comfortably now because they're large. And,
Just really big.
yeah.
Linus has a similar problem to that. He likes old iPhones because they're much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I've never had a phone that I liked for more than 6 months. Like it's okay for 6 months, and then with the software updates and whatever I'm doing to it, it starts to run really bad.
Well, okay, what phone had the best 6-month period then?
Probably the T-Mobile Sidekick, the very last generation one, because you could really quickly switch between a bunch of tasks. The web browsing wasn't terrible, instant messaging wasn't terrible, email was pretty good. There was one device before that was like really, it was a little before that era. It was like a Motorola pager thing. It was not a phone. That thing was awesome. I don't remember what it was. I had that before I had a cell phone, and that was like, because then people couldn't call me. It was great.
Mine would probably be my S3. I'm going to be easy. Basically, that story
S3
was
really
awesome. The thing was a tank. I had it for so long. I think it still works. We got close. It's on your shoe.
I know.
I had that phone for a very, very long time.
Oh, I hit him. Did you see it hit the ground? He spiraled and he came back up.
You won.
I actually hit him.
You got him.
But he's not dead. He spiraled and he flew back
I
up.
think we're at one love.
He's going to get sucked into that machine and be on one of the fans with all his friends.
You guys can't see that, but that fangirl's
Wait,
pretty gnarly.
no way.
Yeah, he's right there. There's another one right there.
Wait, there's another one?
Yeah, there's two.
Wait, there's three.
One over there.
I was so excited. I felt like my leg was going to be the death platform for this fly, and I was stoked. But yeah, my S3. What about you?
I really liked the S3 just because it was a good size improvement, but I don't want to copy your answer. So probably my original Droid, because I actually played around back then with a lot of rooting, different ROMs. I actually wrote my own soundboard app back then for like playing my daughter's first words, and I wrote that for my wife so she could have it on her phone, and so it was a lot of fun. But then I think back then, obviously, there was a lot of limitations to the first Moto Droid, and battery life kind of sucked, and early Android wasn't as smooth. It was clunky.
It took them like a year to make TouchWiz not a giant pile of garbage.
Right. But my problem with the Samsung phones was the amount of bloatware they came with too. So
That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
That's one reason why I'm on a Pixel right now. It's just the stock experience is always preferred for me.
Yeah.
Most other phones that I've had, I've tried as hard as I possibly can to revert it to a stock-based experience. I do not like any of the custom UIs. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. It's all garbage.
This phone's too amazing. Let's crap it up, boys.
Yeah.
I don't think
covered
I've
in
never
junk.
seen somebody ask, say, I would like this phone to run slower. Please add your own software to it.
Yeah.
You've never seen anybody ask for the Bixby
I would
button?
like a little bit more lag.
well, it's kind of like laptops now, right? Like MSI is notorious for a crap ton of dashboards and bloatware and stuff. It's like you get rid of all that stuff. It's a good experience, but otherwise,
When you work in a shop that sells, not necessarily a repair shop, but when you work in a shop that sells laptops and one of your main services is making them not junk out of the box, that's like a weird place to be.
Yeah.
We have poll results for the question.
not surprising.
I don't think it's true at all.
You think more people choose based on status?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Those people are lying.
Well, it might be a little bit of lying. It might be a little bit of subconscious shifting, where you've decided that you want that phone because of status anyways, and you'll justify it because of performance or feature reasons. And I think probably the strongest factor is that the audience that we have.
Well, there's smartphone envy too, right? If you have a crappy phone, the guy next to you pulls out the latest version, you're kind of like, oh, right?
I want that
And the
one.
same thing, if you got the latest one, you kind of want to be like, everyone look at my phone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's sad, but it really is like an accessory.
Yeah. But like again, with our audience though, it's a bunch of PC performance freaks. I'm not that surprised that PC performance freaks want high performance and high feature phones. If we did this survey across everyone on the planet and everyone answered honestly, I bet you status would probably be higher than anything else.
Probably.
But with this audience and with natural skewing, I'm not surprised it was 95%.
Would people really admit that? Because then they have to admit to themselves, I spent an extra $400 for status, and that's not a pill that I think most people would swallow.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like do you buy things for like functionality over aesthetic or aesthetic over functionality? I think a lot of people will say that they buy something for functionality, but they might even be buying the aesthetic of functionality, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If something looks like it's highly functional, then they want that thing. It's a really interesting mind game scenario because you might be convincing yourself of something and not even realize it.
There's a dimension of that that's sort of related, which is taking your customizations and your settings and stuff. And that has always been, like, if you spend a lot of time customizing your phone or customizing whatever it is to make it exactly just so, you will be punished because every time there's an update or every time you switch phones, it is super difficult to get all those customizations from one device to another, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
That's one of the few things I liked about Apple's operating system is that when you use Migration Assistant and Time Machine, it just copies everything. Every app, even the settings within your applications, will get even your third-party applications, all get copied over perfectly.
It's truly one of the reasons why I stayed on iOS for so long was simply because new phone, copy from previous backup, restore, up and running, and everything's exactly how I left it. I don't even use the ecosystem. I don't have a watch. I don't have an Apple what's the Apple TV thing?
Yeah.
I don't have anything. I have no other part of the ecosystem. I even have a MacBook, but even they aren't connected.
Yeah, Microsoft really screwed the pooch with the registry because the registry was supposed to be that, and also your application data folder, and like theoretically you can move that between machines, but in reality you can't. It ends badly every time.
Yeah.
You can copy certain features of certain applications, but not everything, and you have to reinstall the applications yourself.
I noticed that when you upgrade to a new device, right? It doesn't save the apps or anything. It saves the app data and then re-downloads the apps fresh and then repopulates the data.
Yeah.
Which before it used to be, like you said, a direct copy, which was even, I believe in the earlier days, was even copying the battery data, which was making new batteries perform like poor batteries because of that efficiency scale.
Yeah.
So I did notice that when I upgraded this one.
That was one of the worst things, like working in a like computer shop, and you'd be doing services, and someone would buy a new computer and they'd want a data transfer, and because I tried to be at least somewhat honest, I would try to explain to them this is pretty easy to do on your own, but if they wanted it anyways, sure, whatever, sounds good. And you go to do it, and then you have to tell them that they can't bring any of their programs. And there's just that kind of
that's a 20-minute conversation, and there's like this ratio where like as the customer is older, the conversation is longer.
And
like there's and then you have to explain. Well, you have to remember your own Wi-Fi password, and you'll have to do this and that because we do data recovery, and sometimes we can recover it to where you can do you can use Migration Assistant when you get all their programs, and sometimes you can't, and I'm just copying your data folder from here to here. And a lot of people, even if I explain to them, you have to reinstall your programs, your settings will not be the same. When they show up, they go, Where's my stuff?
Yeah.
Wait, it's all in this folder? I'm like, yeah, your music is in the music folder. Okay, but where's the library? I don't have my library. And it's like, well, no, it's in there. You just gotta load up iTunes. I gotta load up iTunes. And it's just, I mean, yeah, I've had people actually like break down with tears because they didn't remember their email password. Their email password was in the. I'm like, I can't get you that. It's like, what am I doing?
And the email password's an interesting one too, because one of the biggest things is like they won't have a password manager. They won't have written their passwords down, which I guess that's good, but they won't know how to log into anything.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ooh.
It's painful.
Carrying those sessions over would be super nice.
Yeah, what they're paying for is not for you to transfer the data. They're paying for the half-hour conversation you're going to have about every single program.
Yeah. There's some people that it's just not even worth upgrading the computer because they would just lose all their stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I guess I'll deal with this slow, terrible experience because it's better than losing all my programs and all my settings and all my logins and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that especially winds up being true in broadcast or in the music business because people will have certain plugins, and if you upgrade to a new operating system, they won't work anymore, and you'll have to find alternatives. Or this program, like once they get a rig that works, it works, and they want to keep it as is.
And that stuff can cost a lot too.
Yeah, like a new operating system will mess up. This is always used to happen with OS 10 and Pro Tools. New OS, Pro Tools wouldn't work right, or it's just that stuff can be a nightmare for people.
Yeah. The copy protection. They bury things somewhere in the system. And sometimes it's just a software compatibility thing. Both of those things are terrible.
What is it like on Linux? Because I've never actually tried. Every single Linux version that I've had has been full, pure, from scratch every time.
So that's an interesting question.
I've never tried to migrate from machines.
Mostly it's okay. So like I have a file that customizes the command line and provides some aliases and shortcuts and stuff like that. And I've been working on that for 20 years, and I've never lost it, and it's great, and it's just like the best thing ever. So it's like literally 20 years of preferences in that file. Other stuff...
That's the most Linux thing I've ever heard.
Other stuff, not so good. Like other stuff, the migration is a little bit more of a pain. One of the things that Ubuntu has done recently is they have this thing called snaps. And so because you have this version of this library that this program needs, and you need a slightly different version of that library for some older program, that can be problematic to run those combinations of things. And so one of the things that snaps does for you is that it packages all of your dependencies inside this file, which uses more space, but makes it to where that you have to worry about being able to run those things less. So in terms of like, I want to migrate all my programs and just be able to run it with those kinds of technologies, generally you're a lot more successful. But like a lot of the things with like Kdenlive is a great example because we get lots of support requests for Kdenlive on our forum. Kdenlive is a great program, but 90% of the problems with Kdenlive, not actually Kdenlive, it's the libraries. There are bugs in the libraries, and so you can have audio sync issues and things like that, and that is just the libraries on the system. And so snaps can help with stuff like that on Ubuntu.
Cool.
And other technologies on other distros can help with that. So it's very user respecting, but it's still not quite as slick of a solution as it could be.
Right. I am going to take this slight intermission to do something that I actually completely forgot that I had to do, which is sponsors. So just give me a sec, guys. Sorry. First up, we have private internet access. Private internet access is a VPN. You guys probably know what it is at this point. It has encryption, authentication services. It works for Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, Linux. Again, it still says Linus in the dock. It drives me nuts. It does not work on Linus. It works on Google Chrome, and it has support for several other platforms coming soon. You can connect up to 5 devices under one account at the same time, so you can have like your phone and your laptop and your desktop and whatever else all connected. It has an internet kill switch, so if your VPN disconnects for whatever reason, it will disconnect you from the internet so that you don't accidentally send any data under a non-encrypted channel. And you can check it out today in the link in the video description or this thing here, pia.com/pages/linus-tech.tips. There we go. Next up, we've got Savage Jerky, which we have a box of beef jerky here. So you guys don't have to talk, but if you want free beef jerky, just go ahead and
Maybe
nibble.
the original. There we go.
Oh, I ended up with habanero. This is not good.
You can get a different one if you want.
I had the habanero, the Mojo habanero earlier. It wasn't that bad.
Oh, habanero? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what, 3 or 4, is it?
I
Something like that.
don't remember.
I'm gonna go for a
Yeah.
nice, safe teriyaki.
There you go.
Are we gonna try this now? Is that-
You can if you want. I don't care. You can also just take it home if you want. It doesn't really matter. Their jerky is made with the best ingredients, without nitrates or preservatives. Their goal is to create a snack that is full of flavor and spice that isn't bad for you. They've got 13 different flavors of jerky. We've got, which one is this? Teriyaki and original here.
well, teriyaki's pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe
My-
no teriyakis.
My favorite one is Mojo Jalapeno, if I remember correctly. That one's actually pretty good. They have sauces, which I don't think we've shown on the show before, but this one is Reaper hot sauce, so that's made with Carolina Reaper. Careful with that one. And then this one is Mojo Jalapeno, so that's my favorite jerky, and now they have a sauce for it, so that's pretty cool.
Original's my favorite.
It's pretty good.
There you go. Use offer code LTT to save 10% off on all of their products at savagejerky.com. And then the last sponsor, I really wonder what the notes are for this. It's in all capital letters. It says, "It's going to be dope. It's tomorrow, July 14th. Get your tickets now. We will have tickets at the door, but the quantity will be limited." Smiley face. LTXexpo.com. So yeah, if you live like within range of Richmond, BC, and you weren't already planning to come to LTX, come hang out. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be people there.
Do I get a badge? Do I get a badge?
I don't know. I don't know
want
if
a
there are
badge.
badges. You want a badge?
I want a badge.
We'll make you a badge. Yeah, we'll make sure you get a badge.
We don't need no badgers.
Start playing the Badger, the old Badger video.
And
10 hours of Badger.
that's it. No more sponsory stuff.
But I'm still going to enjoy your sponsor for a minute.
Oh, do it. Go ahead. Yeah, I've done that for the entire rest of the show sometimes before. Are you going to be at LTX? Are you coming? Cool. Yeah. Cool. I wasn't sure.
He's going to offer to break your iPhone and then fix it.
Oh boy, I don't have an iPhone.
Or anyone. Like,
Now I want to go get one because that would be cool.
if you see Lewis,
to offers her up.
he'll
That'd be
smash
awesome.
your screen and replace it on site.
Nice. That'd be great. Are you doing something at a booth? Or are you just kind of wandering
think
around
so.
hanging out?
Just
Yeah,
wandering
cool.
around.
Yeah. I wasn't even informed anyone sitting here was going to be here until like the beginning of this week, and then I only knew you were going to be here until today. So I'm actually quite excited.
We talked about that earlier. I actually knew for 3 months.
Yeah. Communication around these parts is just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I just thought I knew how to open or close an iMac.
Oh,
That was.
was that his whole? Okay.
I told him, like, yeah, you realize I've had employees to like put those back together for the past 5 years. You don't know how to open or close this, and I said, oh. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll just
yeah.
grab the board and go click, and he goes, no.
And then the whole thing started
Give it a shot.
chipping. That was about
Oh yeah, when I was just, I don't think it's fitting in. I'm like, yeah, let me just push it hard.
No spoilers, but I legit got anxiety watching you guys work on that iMac. I turned around and sat down on the wall. Like, I didn't even, like, I was out of eyesight because I was getting anxious watching.
I gave him the same service that we give every customer.
That's the best ad I think I've ever heard.
No, I've had like my store manager come to me and say, "Can you stop like showing reading the letters that customers write on screen? Because I'll be sitting there fixing a board and I'll go, oh, this Thunderbolt doesn't look good. Yoink. Or the other USB circuit looks messed. Well, we can always put that stuff back on later. You don't really need that." And I'm saying it as kind of a joke because I'm going to get rid of that circuit and I'll put it back on once it turns on. But there'll be people watching going, "Oh my God, what is he doing to my board?" And then they'll call them and say, "Is that my board on the screen that you just ripped all that stuff off?" It's like, you should know what you were getting.
That's fantastic. Why is everyone spamming numbers? I don't understand. I'm just gonna mass ban people.
Or when
Keep
people
doing that.
type F, I don't know what that means
tab it.
either.
That is.
Well, F is pay respects, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, people keep doing this.
So that's a Call of Duty meme where you like walk up to, I believe they're lowering the coffin of your like friend into the ground, your friend and fellow soldier, and you have to press F on your keyboard.
Why don't
to
you type
do
R for respect? What is F?
I think F is just like it's like an easy macro key. So if your fingers are on like WASD, you can.
Well, usually the two interact keys in a game on a computer is either
E and F.
I've never played Call of Duty.
Oh, everyone's banning F. I thought everyone was doing numbers, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go start banning people. But you know what? F is okay.
Is it because the stream died?
No, it's just not showing here. This is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my eyes aren't great, so I'm like trying to monitor the chat from here.
You have good enough internet that you could watch your own stream while you're streaming it. That's
on 2 different devices.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you experience New York internet. I'm so sorry.
If I play the stream while I'm watching it, I'll get dropped frames. This guy from Russia actually made me a little plugin for Open Broadcaster. It'll say this many frames stolen by Time Warner with a little logo, and it'll go up and it matches the Open Broadcaster count.
Why is internet in New York bad?
Oh, it's real bad.
What?
We've done
It's
news stories on it. It's so controlled. It's such like there's so many little agreements from all the little ISPs there that they don't compete with one another. That there's basically no service or infrastructure upgrades the last 15, 20 years.
You either have Verizon DSL in my location, which is 3 megabit down and 0.7 megabit up, or you get Time Warner, which is 20 megabit up half the time for 409 plus tax.
The hotel I'm staying at in Richmond right now gives me 0.6 down, 0.1 up.
Oh, I went to upload a video today using the connection upstairs, and I thought, oh, it says 6 minutes remaining. I must have uploaded the wrong file. That must be the audio by itself, and it's like, no, that's 18 gigabytes, and it says 6 minutes remaining. It's like at home, it'll say, yeah, 14 hours, your video will be.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's weird because like we have.
I couldn't operate.
Australia is horrible for internet, and I've been learning that doing the floatplane stuff that I've been doing. Speaking of which, sponsor spot, floatplane.com. Heck yeah, Scrapyard Wars this weekend. Okay, I'm done. But it's like even just getting servers, like renting a server in Australia is ludicrously expensive because the internet's so crazy expensive. And Canada has a similar problem of one of the problems that Australia has, which is large landmass, not a ton of people. They also have the problem of being kind of isolated and kind of off the main path of most of the undersea cables. But Canada's problem, we're all extremely spread out. All of Canada has less population than just the state of California, and then a massive country. So you put those two together, and it's not a really great combination. Luckily, we're all mostly nestled in these like cities that dot around the country. So like Vancouver itself does pretty well. This place has 1,000 down, 1,000 up. My house, my like random suburbia house, has fiber 150 down, 150 up. And I pay significantly less than you do. 409 a month is like
It's
that
460
hurts my
something
brain.
after taxes.
409 a month for what?
460 after tax.
It's 20 megabit up, 300 megabit down, but the 20 megabit up, it's like sometimes 20, sometimes 10, sometimes 5. Sometimes I actually had to get Verizon DSL along with the Time Warner because the Time Warner goes down so often that I got a PFSense router that will automatically switch over to the $100 a month Verizon DSL when it dies so that I can still process credit cards.
Wow.
That's pretty typical for New York.
Yeah, I expect the Time Warner that costs $409 a month to go down often enough that it's worth it to have another internet connection.
Like my studio's in the greater LA area, and I've got 300 by 300 fiber for $99. It's pretty.
Yeah, I'm
crazy.
paying, I believe it's $99, but I had like a signing bonus lowered for a temporary period of time thing for a while now for my 150.
There's a new construction a little bit like 30 minutes south of where I live, and there were big old billboards as they were like, getting the land ready that it's going to be, it was a fiber community or gigabit community. And it was like $59 a month.
The other thing is on the commercial side. So like a lot of commercial internet is often much worse than residential internet at the lower tier, just because Verizon and Time Warner and those companies, they want at least $2,500 a month for the internet connection, even if the company's like.
And they try and guarantee that 99.9% uptime,
Which
right?
is absolutely PG with something.
Good
job.
You're not getting 99.9
No, I've had to put a sign up on the door enough times that said cash only, no internet.
Yeah.
With tape. Yeah. That is so aggravating when you know that you're spending over $450 on internet.
I was going to say, with both of those internet connections. That's insane. Oh, right. Is this local to LTX only? Or can you buy this stuff online?
Can you buy it online? No.
None of it?
So it's LTX only.
Okay, so if you're watching this and are going to be at LTX, nice little combo, you can get a tech-linked pin, an LTX lanyard, which has like some actually pretty cool graphics and stuff on it, and a little quick disconnect thing at the back.
Oh my.
This shirt, which I've never seen before. Oh yeah, I have. This is pretty cool. This is just like a straight up Linus Tech Tips shirt. What?
No, Lewis got it.
Oh, okay. This one's one of my favorite. I don't really understand why we did this, but I think it's awesome.
Who's that?
It's
Dennis.
one of the editors. So this is one of the editors, Dennis, just making a face on a shirt. It's great. I personally love it, but I can understand how some people might think it's a little funky. Then I think we just have two other. Yeah, this is the Linus Tech Tips like circuit logo shirt.
So is there
and we
special
have different
edition or limited
versions of
edition
that.
graphics being given out or being sold at LTX?
I believe so. Yeah, this is another one of the circuit designs. I thought there was another shirt as well, but that might have been only for the VIP people. I'm not really sure. But yeah, you can buy cool shirts at LTX if you are watching this and going to be there and didn't notice that you could buy shirts and happened to see this. There we go. Best ad spot ever. Yeah. What was I going to say next? One thing that I wanted to get through, and I think we might have time, is because I always find this quite interesting, and we'll switch it. We'll go from this way over. What got you into computers and technology in general?
My dad, after the military, he was a project manager, and he was one of the first. I don't want to say pioneers, but he was a senior VP for a company that was building mainframes and doing crazy old school tape drive backups and stuff. And he basically talked to the company. He was like, guys, we need to get off the mainframe and we need to get into computer project management, computer based stuff, PC stuff. And this was back in like 79, 80. And they didn't listen to him. And of course, that company went belly up because they were one of the leaders in the mainframe, and everyone was getting off the mainframe. But he, so when that happened, he ended up going to business for himself, writing project management software. And from my earliest memories, I was always on his lap while he was on the computer doing his thing. And he said the best thing he ever did for me was when I would try and touch the computer, he never was like, no, don't touch. He was always like, he would save his work and just be like, have fun, just type away and mash on the keyboard. So he never once told me I couldn't touch anything.
Right.
So I've always done that with my kids. And
Okay.
It's kind of gone, 2 generations at this point now. My youngest daughter now she's 3.5 and showing interest in the computer, which I think is fantastic.
Sure.
So yeah, it was just my dad, and that was just life was computers, and as long as I remember. So it's that simple.
I think I've told my story a million times, so I'll do a very brief version of it. But I just wanted to play Diablo, and the computer stopped working, so I learned how to fix it so I could keep playing Diablo. And it's gone from there. There's longer versions, but you've probably heard it a million times.
I don't really know where to start. There was
I find yours kind of interesting because you were like super in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah, I was super in the middle. The first event really that led to that was there was this old guy, and I was sort of bored in school, and they were trying to figure out how to deal with that because it was like kindergarten or first grade or something, and there was an old guy visiting from the Stevens Institute, and he's like, all right, let's figure this out. So we set up an Apple II with like a wooden brake to measure your reaction time. When like you hit the thing, there was like a basic program that would run and tell you what your reaction time was for like braking in a car. And so he walked me through soldering wires into something inside the Apple II, and then writing a program on the Apple II and doing all the stuff. And it was like, I have to learn more. And so
And you were in kindergarten and grade 1?
I was very young, yeah.
That's quite an impressive project.
Because I like took everything apart. I got in trouble for taking apart like the TV in school, which is what led to that.
Okay.
I needed a machine to work on some sessions in Logic Pro, and the studio that I was working at had closed down. So I bought a MacBook because I was broke. Used it on eBay, and it arrived broken. I got a discount on it, so I bought the screen that I needed to fix it. And then when I didn't need it anymore, I sold it, and I realized I made a profit of $200 or $300. So I thought, let me do this again. So I was buying and reselling them for a month or two. Then I started offering the services to other people. I didn't think it was economically viable, but then I realized the part is $80 to $90, and Apple charges $1,200 at the time to replace the entire screen assembly. So I just kept doing that over and over again. people started bringing liquid damage ones eventually, so I started sending them off to a company in China that would fix them. They were doing worse and worse job as time went on, so I figured if I've been working on recording studio equipment and consoles at component level, let me see if I can figure out how to do this. So after a few years of painfully messing around and failing a lot and recording a lot of it for YouTube, I got decent enough at it that I could offer it to regular customers. And that was that. I think the YouTube thing started from making a video because Reseller Ratings was trying to up the rate by about 1,000%. So I did a video on their process that got 120,000 views that I thought would get 10, and that was that.
Cool. And you've mentioned audio stuff a few times this WAN show. So what was your involvement in the music industry?
I went to Avatar Studios, and I said that I remember saying something like, I would rather wash the toilets here than work at any other place for money. And I remember I showed up for my interview, and the guy asked, what is this thing that I had in my pocket? And it was a Simoy headphone amplifier that I put together myself from stuff that I bought on eBay. And he said, you're hired. I think that was Roy Hendrickson that hired me. So I worked there, and I cleaned the toilets, and I cleaned all the floors and the consoles and everything for 3 months. And then after working there for free, after 3 months, I got to work in the tech room with the other people working on SSL consoles and EVE consoles, studio tape machines. And that was that.
Cool. Sweet.
It was fun.
I think with that, we have about 10 minutes left. Let's see if there's any actual topics to talk about.
No topics.
No.
Turns out recycling garbage in like the poor part of the thing, that's also a really good way to get technology. That's how I got most of my first computers. It's like, let's Frankenstein stuff together. I
feel like most people that are into computers have a similar story to that. Like, my favorite one is I went to a country high school. We didn't have very much money, especially not in the tech departments. And the way that we built a new computer lab, because we needed one really badly, because there's a lot of kids in the school that were interested in computers. It was just designed as a country school, so it was most trades and stuff. The way we built a new computer lab was my teacher waited for the truck that went to all the different schools and picked up all their broken computers, because they did it once every few years, and called him, the guy, directly. I don't know how he got his number, and diverted him to our school, which originally he wasn't planning to go to because we had no computers to give up. And he was like, yeah, we got some stuff, just leave the truck for a little while. And he left the truck, and we offloaded everything that was on there, which was not supposed to happen. I'm not going to say your name, but thank you very much, teacher, because I think the hard drives and stuff that were on there.
Yeah.
But we took everything, we shoved it all in one room, and then my teacher was just like, okay, bye, thank you, leave now. And we spent the next few months, that whole computer class, just we would lay out oh my goodness, okay, this motherboard actually works. Let's find all the CPUs and all the RAM and everything that can go into this board and test all of it and mark everything as good or bad, and use those to find all the motherboards that work, and blah, 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 blah. And we ended up building 1.5 computer labs out of it. That was a really, really cool project.
That was a lot of fun. We had I was accused, by the time I made it to high school, I was accused of black magic because the local repair place would always replace the motherboard whenever a kid would something. The PS2 ports were really bad because if you pulled the keyboard the wrong way, it would blow the fuse on the motherboard. And so it was not surface mount, it was through hole. It was really easy to replace. And I would be like, well, let's just crack it open, take the motherboard out, and replace the through hole fuse. And the local computer repair company was like, black magic, witchcraft, burn him at the stake. We got to replace the motherboard. We can't just repair them. That's like 3 cents. We can't do it. So yeah, that was not fun in a poor high school where they can't afford $1,000 a machine to replace stuff.
And I don't know why I'm jumping back to this now. I kind of skimmed over it when you were first telling the story, but you built a amplifier, you said?
It was a Simoy. They have all these guides online on how to build them. It's a headphone amplifier that you build into an Altoids can that's powered off a 9-volt battery.
So what got you into that, though?
I just enjoyed hi-fi audio.
Okay, yeah. So you wanted to kind of build some of the...
Yeah, I just thought it was something cool to do in my spare time.
And I've seen, if I remember correctly, you have those I'm going to use the wrong term, but the sound dampening panels?
Yeah, I have those sound dampening panels.
Yeah.
Piles of panels.
Yeah, in my office and at home.
Yeah. Are you still into custom hi-fi stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. What's the most recent custom hi-fi project you've done?
Just the Vandersteen set of speakers that I have at home. You really don't need really expensive stuff to make it sound good. You can find used stuff online, like Vandersteen speakers for $400, a cheap amplifier, and some of those Corning 703 panels, and it'll sound amazing.
Yeah, I've actually been For a while now, I've wanted to copy your sound dampening panel project.
You just can't have a cat, because if you have a cat, then
Yeah, I don't have a cat.
yeah, they use it as a scratching post. They've made it that entire section of my apartment look like garbage.
That's not
The
good.
cat is cute, so it gets away.
And you worked in IT for quite a while.
I had several hats in that company, but I worked very close. Well, I started actually doing energy audits and stuff within the company, and we also wrote our own software to run on various devices, either iPads or the Samsung devices I mentioned. And we had major contracts with the power companies, and then our IT department was extremely overworked in supporting all these devices, upgrading them, getting ready to go, repairing them. And we also had our in-house, a software development team. And then the more they realized that I was the guy that was actually going around in the field helping other people. So if you had a problem, you had to call into the help desk, right? And our help desk was 3 guys trying to support a company of 350 field agents, and it was just like that could get overworked really easy.
Yeah.
And that was the same. Our IT department of 3 was the same guys also building and managing our 3 countrywide, 6 major cities VPN that kept all of our offices in communication. So if they were doing that, or they were out at a data center or something, we were just like down in person.
Yeah.
So I was the guy that everyone started calling out in the field to come help them if they had tech problems with their equipment or something was broke and needed it fixed. When the company realized I was doing that, then they were like, hey, do you want to manage our help desk? And I was like, I don't know, we'll see. So because they knew I had all the end user experience as well as the technical know-how to keep it all working. Well, once I got into that role, they realized I also knew an okay amount of coding and design from my dad being a software developer. So then they were like, you want to be a part of our QC QA team and be a part of our automated testing? And I'm like, wait, so you want me to do help desk management and this? So basically I ended up having like these 3 hats at one time, which really burned me out, to be honest, because I did that for almost 10 years.
Right.
And then that was when I started doing the YouTube thing and just kind of moved out of there. But it was fun. I learned a lot. Obviously it was unique to have this kind of a Venn diagram of experience of all 3 of those aspects, development, support, and then end user, which really gave me a unique understanding of what it's like from top to bottom when it comes to product testing and use.
Yeah.
So I try and take everything from a very practical perspective of how I approach tech, but I do have a very high level knowledge too on where a lot of it starts. But I try not to really go into any of that in my content because I leave stuff for that, like with Wendell and Gamers Nexus.
Yeah.
The guys who can actually communicate that in a manner which people can understand, because I'm very good at practical use, but I'm very bad at technical explanation.
Okay.
So.
And I'm going to take something that you said and something that you explained. But so you got into YouTube because you wanted to kind of express annoyance from, who was it? Resellerratings.com. And you mentioned that you started to get into YouTube at that time, but why did you start to get into YouTube?
It was a dare.
Oh.
Someone dared me.
Okay.
So I was
That's
live.
different.
Yeah. Well, I was live streaming Call of Duty 3 Close Quarters when it launched, because Nick Coconut Monkey and I were good friends. We played that all the time, and I had started live streaming it because when it dropped for premium access, early access, he was like with a family on vacation. He couldn't play it, so he was all butthurt. So I basically was like, okay, I'll find out how to stream it so you can watch and see the early access. Another gentleman by the name of Holiday Doc came in and just randomly found my stream, and he was a pretty well-known like Call of Duty codcaster for like MLG. And he just thought that I was funny and entertaining, and then we became friends. And after a couple of months, he's like, you should do YouTube. People would find like this tech stuff interesting, because I became like the guy he asked PC questions to, because he didn't know anything about PCs. And then he was like, you should do stuff like this on YouTube. I said, and at the time, I didn't know Linus Tech Tips. I didn't know people made livings on YouTube. This is 2012. I was super ignorant to what was going on. I was like, who the heck would watch a channel about computers? That sounds like the most boring thing anyone would ever spend their time doing. He's like, well, just try it. So I basically told him, I'll try it, but when it fails, will you leave me alone? He kept bugging me about doing it. And so I was like, fine, I'll try it. And then, of course, it just sort of steadily took off. And I've since like built him a computer and sent him parts and stuff. Thank you. But yeah,
Thanks for pushing me.
It's one of those things where I only did it to show that it would not work.
Yeah.
And fast forward 6 years, it's now it's now incorporated, and it's now helping other people pay their bills because now I have employees. So it's crazy.
That's actually really cool, and I like the part where you sent him a computer and parts and stuff. 'Cause that's kind of cool to pay it back. I got into YouTube because I was like really into mechanical keyboards, like before America really had very many mechanical
That
keyboards.
sounds rare. That people are like really into that. And I
Yeah,
guess-
there's forums dedicated to it and stuff. It's just not that big of a community. And I had my own like imported from Taiwan keyboard and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to show it off because I was proud that I had finally actually gotten a mechanical
Right.
keyboard instead of just researching them online all the time. So I filmed a video of that and then never released it. And now there's some people watching this have probably seen it, but there's a video of Linus and I watching that video, both just essentially making fun of
Oh
me.
yeah, because that was when it was like critiquing your first video. Like a lot of people were doing that.
Yeah. So we critiqued a video that no one had seen because it was
Gotcha.
never released anywhere.
Right. So that the director's commentary thing we were talking about, like as it's airing, and then you're so embarrassed because you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I said that.
Yeah,
Like at the
yeah.
time you think like you nailed this video, you go back and you look and you're like, wow, I'm an idiot.
Especially because I said something that was like factually incorrect.
What was your first mechanical keyboard?
DK 9008 G2 from Ducky.
Oh, see, I mean, Ducky's an awesome
It's
brand.
still the keyboard that I
Yeah.
use.
My first was a Razer Black Widow.
Oh yeah, okay.
I remember. I mean, it was nothing super special, but it was a
Yeah.
blue switch, which I thought was super cool until I started streaming.
I still stream with it. I don't even care. People got to deal with it.
Model M or bust.
Do you use one?
I do.
Okay.
I've got a black Model M. I actually have
That's cool.
a fairly impressive collection of the SSK Model M's as well, the numpadless ones.
Yeah.
I've amassed. I should be able to make it until I'm about 80 if I only use
Wow.
the SSKs.
That's pretty sweet.
The model and Unicomp still makes the Model M, but it's a little lighter. It's not
It's
quite
not
the same construction.
Yeah.
The earlier ones are better. The later ones, they've gotten a lot of money from like the healthcare industry and stuff. So Unicomp is making higher quality products than they were even a couple of years ago, and it's almost as good. But man, those it's nice. The only thing I really miss are the extra keys. So I've had to like remap my keys for things on the right side of the keyboard, but it's not bad.
Yeah. I have one properly functioning Model M, but I generally don't use it.
I've got a bunch of the ones with a numlock. You can totally have one. Or with like the number pad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'd be cool.
I can even give you new in box. I've got like 4 of those.
Of like the original?
Yeah.
Holy cow, that would be pretty cool. I will. We'll talk later on that one. But how do you get into YouTube?
The very first video that I made was actually even before the thing. Like I don't know, it's a long story. But even before all of that, there is a video that I'm surprised that no one found, and it was when Windows Vista came out. I was so angry. I probably should have been medicated, and I was really worried about privacy and things like that. But I made a driver showing how NVIDIA had completely screwed the pooch on 64-bit drivers under 64-bit Vista. They literally took their 32-bit driver and pasted it into a 64-bit wrapper. I was so mad I could not see straight. I was seething with anger because it was like, right up to the beta launch, NVIDIA was like ready to come out with the driver. And then after Vista went into production, they were like, okay, cool, here's our real driver. And it was still the same garbage that had been for like the last 6 months before that. And so there's a video on YouTube of me losing my mind and ranting about this horrible pile of garbage driver that doesn't work, and it'll work for 5 minutes and then crash. And the whole reason was that as soon as a program would try to do anything outside of that 32-bit address space with that 64-bit driver, it would crash because it wasn't really a 64-bit driver. So there's that, and that's the very first thing I did on YouTube, technically.
I guess, yeah, if I want to be specific, the very first stuff I did on YouTube was, again, this is the only reason why I thought of it even. I usually forget about this, but you mentioned no one found it. So far, no one has found this. I checked a little while ago, and it was still there. I don't know why the titles are so bad. It's probably why people can't find it, but no clickbait here. But this was, I used to do guides on how to get 100% sync in, like, Assassin's Creed levels, and like no one cared. It was great. So another thing I want to ask you about is you recently developed and started selling, why am I forgetting the name of them right now?
KVM?
Yes, you like multi-port KVMs with really high-end features.
So that was another thing that made me almost as mad, but not quite as mad as the NVIDIA driver thing.
That's why I brought it up.
And it was like, all right, I can do something about this. This is a thing that I can fix, because the world of KVMs for like 4K and like DisplayPort 60 hertz, it's terrible. It's really terrible. And
most I know of even now are still like VGA stuff.
yeah. And like the USB functionality is like it's designed for like the $5 USB keyboard, which has like one of 3 of the cheapest USB chips known to man. But if you've got an RGB keyboard, it doesn't work. Or if you've got like the Corsair keyboards, once the driver loads, it's not even really a keyboard anymore. And so good luck getting that to work with a KVM. And so I found somebody in Taiwan that had basically the hardware that I needed, but I got them to tweak the hardware for me, and I got to do software that solves the problems for people like us that would be trying to do things with a KVM that has, a 4K DisplayPort, 1.2, whatever. And I basically already had a customer lined up for them, so I was just sort of selling the seconds, but they sold so well that we did 2 other runs, and it is shocking the people that have come out of the woodwork to buy the KVMs, and generally it's done really well. Interestingly, Macs are the things that have the biggest problem. Like the trash can Mac Pros don't actually follow the DisplayPort spec at all.
No way.
Yeah, so
that's the most surprised no way I've ever heard.
So they're a little problematic with Macs. The modern Macs, you have to use like a Thunderbolt dock that has like a DisplayPort socket. You can't just use a cheap cable, and I don't know what that's about. So I'm working on that.
Yeah, I know that every MacBook since the Touch Bar with the dongle, if you use a dongle that's not the Apple dongle, your devices won't work.
Yeah, it's a pain.
I had planned to do a real review of that, and once I got to the point where I plugged it in and I realized the dongle didn't work unless you used the $80 one, and the $30 one worked in the 2 other machines I had, I just couldn't stop laughing.
Well, one of the design choices on the KVM is that it does not have a repeater, and so a lot of the signal out of that DisplayPort cable is just barely enough that if it's going into the monitor, it's fine. But if you send it in through the connector and then into the KVM, which is like another 4 inches of cable, and then back out again, the signal to noise ratio is not high enough for it to do a proper digital sync or whatever on that cable. And it's infuriating because the spec says that it should be able to push an unamplified cable that's like 8 meters or something like that, and you're lucky to get 4.
I'd be interested in what chipsets the trash can one uses, because I think I've only opened one of those ever.
It's a D300, but it goes through the board in the bottom and then back out the connector in the back, and so they have a repeater or something in the board in the bottom, and that's the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because if I just solder a little dongle directly on the D300, it's fine.
So you'd have to tell your customers to solder it directly to the Mac Pro.
Yeah, it's some of the witchcraft after the D300 before it makes it out of the Mac that causes
Some
the problem.
assembly and required.
Yeah.
You mentioned I think it was like 4 inches or whatever of cable within the box. That was I'm gonna tangent here a fair amount, but that was a really interesting situation when USB 3 first started becoming popular, and you'd have those cases that would have front I/O USB 3, but that were just cable extensions that would go all the way out the back of the case and plug into the back of your motherboard. And then you'd have people with really long USB 3 cables. So you'd have people with like 15 feet worth of total actual distance for USB 3, and then it won't charge their freaking devices.
Yeah. That remains a problem on cases. I mean, the front panel USB 3 is still hit and miss on a lot of cases.
Yeah. It's frustrating too when we're finally in the era where it isn't those weird extensions that have to go out the case and then into the motherboard in order to make it so you can plug in USB. But some cases will still have USB just like header cables for USB 3 that you could plug into a different case. It's like, why is it so long? This is actually really bad. But yeah, most people don't know about that. That being said, though, I think we're going to cut it here because you have to grab a plane.
I have a flight.
Yeah, he has to get out of here. Thanks for watching the WAN show. This was a bit of a different way to do the WAN show. We half covered one topic, but I think it was good. It was fun to talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm going to let people shout out their channels again. So, Lewis?
Rossmann Group.
2 S's,
2 S's, 2 N's.
2 S's, 2 N's.
Level 1 text.
Jayz 2 cents.
Perfect. There we go. I will see you guys next week. I will possibly see you guys at LTX.
I'm going to enjoy some more of this Savage.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Do it. Tomorrow is what? These things? Yeah. So there's only one of them direct. Or was this? It was the first week or the second? That was it's amazing. The guy wearing the red shirt was helping set up the camera earlier. Yay, Savage Turkey! Yay, private internet access!
For all your privates.
Yay, LTX!
I need to get shilling scenes in open broadcaster.
Dude, it's great. It's great.
I have to do it manually. It sucks.